All right, welcome. Today we are diving into what it really takes to nail one of the toughest roles in corporate finance, the internal controls manager. We're going to break down exactly why this interview is such a high hurdle, and more importantly, what separates the people who get the offer from everyone else.
Everything really boils down to this single question. This is what every hiring manager is trying to get to the bottom of. Look, knowing the definitions is one thing, but can you actually apply them when the pressure is on? That's the real test. So let's get into it.
So let's start with the core problem that trips up so many good candidates. There is this huge gap between how people study for their certifications and how they should be prepping for the actual face-to-face interview. I mean, think about it. You can find a million books to help you pass an accounting exam, right? But where are the resources that get you ready for those tough, real-world conversations where your career is literally on the line? It's all about shifting the focus from just memorizing stuff to being truly ready for the job.
So what is it about this particular interview that makes it so different? Why can a seasoned hiring manager tell in just a few minutes if someone is just, faking it? Well, it's because the role itself is this unique pressure cooker of skills.
See, it's not just about knowing the regulations like the back of your hand. It's about blending that deep technical skill with, frankly, the political savvy to navigate a huge, complex company. And you have to do all of that when the stakes are incredibly high. It's a three-dimensional job, and believe me, your interview has to be three-dimensional too.
And that's the part that's kind of terrifying, isn't it? There is absolutely no hiding. A senior leader, an audit partner, they can feel it almost instantly. They know if you're speaking from real experience, from being in the trenches, or if you've just memorized a bunch of talking points. The difference is just night and day.
And that leads us right to this crucial distinction. It's really about the two kinds of candidates who walk into that room. One is ready to talk about the job, but the other is ready to do the job. Just look at this contrast. The unprepared candidate, sure, they can define a control deficiency. That's the bare minimum. But the prepared candidate, they can explain why that deficiency is a massive risk to the business, how they'd work with the operations team to fix it without being seen as the bad guy, and what they would do to make sure it never, ever happens again. You see the difference? They don't just know the what, they've mastered the why and the how.
And this whole idea of mastering the why and the how flows right into our next point. This is where pretty much every technical study guide just completely misses the boat. They teach you all the rules, but they totally ignore the skills that actually determine if you'll sink or swim in this role.
I mean, these are the real deal challenges, right? This stuff isn't in a textbook. It's about influence, persuasion, and integrity. How do you build a real partnership with a department head who thinks your team is just a waste of time? How do you explain a super complex issue to an audit committee? And here's the classic. What do you do when a C-suite executive is pressuring you to just soften your conclusion? Your answer to that question reveals everything about your judgment. It's a test of your character, not just your knowledge.
And all of this leads up to the final boss battle of the interview process, the dreaded, or maybe for the prepared, the anticipated scenario questions.
The guide we're drawing from has 50 of them. That's right, 50 different tricky situations, all designed to push you way beyond what any textbook could teach you.
The guide describes technical knowledge as necessary but insufficient, and that phrase says it all. Of course you need the technical skills. That's just the ticket to get into the game, but it won't win you the game. These scenarios are built to find out what else you've got when the rulebook doesn't have a clear answer.
And that right there, that's the whole point. The interviewer isn't trying to see if you remember some obscure framework. They're trying to figure out who you are. What's the quality of your judgment when things get messy? How clearly can you communicate a tough message? And maybe, most important of all, where do you draw the line when it comes to your professional integrity?
So, the real takeaway is this. The goal isn't to walk in with a bunch of perfectly polished, rehearsed answers. The goal is to walk in as the person who is genuinely, truly ready to handle the job. It's about being good, not just sounding good. And really, that's the question you have to leave with. Because acing this interview, and honestly, succeeding in this career, it's not a performance. It's about a kind of preparation that goes so deep, it actually becomes part of who you are as a professional. Thanks so much for tuning in.